Thank you. So when Cindy emailed me and asked me to do this, she had some ideas of what I might do, and I looked at it and I kind of glanced at the list and I was like, I just don't know about these subjects, and then I talked her into kind of let me talk about what I want to talk about, and then we came up with a title, Mission Forest Watch. And then today I pulled the list back out and I went back through to just kind of see if I was even close to what she wanted. And I actually touch on each one of the topics a little bit that she wanted to cover. And so one of them was urban forestry and community engagement. And the way I'm going to kind of touch on that is how communities can support urban forestry initiatives. And in this particular case, I'm going to be focusing on the pilot community. Wildfire prevention and preparedness, tools and resources for local governments and residents, and forest health and biodiversity, so invasive species and their impact on Texas forests, forest pests and disease to watch for, so those are under forest health. And then sustainability and climate resilience. The one that touches on that one is partnerships between agencies, nonprofits, and volunteers. And so in this particular case, we're talking about what we call a non-traditional partner, and then I'll explain what a traditional partner is also. And then educational programs and resources, the citizen science and youth education opportunities. So we're both the Texas A&M Forest Service and then the Civil Air Patrol. But when we do activities, especially like Arbor Day, it's kind of geared for the younger audiences, because we want to get, the whole purpose is to get them engaged. And Civil Air Patrol, they have a cadet program, and they're the same way. They get the students in there, and they just want to get them around aircraft and aviation, and they give them orientation rides and get them up in the air and see if they like it. And then a lot of them end up going to like the Air Force and military and things like that. So I actually did pretty good. I hit on all the topics, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do. But like I said, the first thing I want to keep in my notes because I don't want to miss anything, is highlighting the role of the Civil Air Patrol volunteer. And then as I go, I'll try to explain the similarities between that agency and our agency. So I titled my presentation Mission Forest Watch and working with a non-traditional partner, the Civil Air Patrol. Can you hear me now? Better. And we'll start off with a little video, kind of help set the tone.
It was a Category 4 hurricane, 138 knot winds that hit the coast, and the eye came right over our city.
It had a lot of small tornadoes inside that big storm. So that's why when you go around town, you're gonna see sometimes a little bitty house that survived, and then right next to it, a beautiful big home that is completely destroyed.
The community as a whole is 35% completely destroyed. And then of the remainder of the community, probably 30 to 35% in addition to that will probably never be rebuilt nor occupied.
The storm obviously is devastating. We've lost so many trees. We've lost our shade. Our oak trees are like our identity here in Aransas County, and it's just heartbreaking to see it.
Our community has long been identified with our windswept oaks right here on the coast. It's a signature tree here in our community.
These trees are super important to me and to this local ecology.
Texas A&M AgriLife Extension and Texas A&M Forest Service are working together to assess the trees to see if they can be saved.
The Urban Forest Strike Team is a group of trained certified arborists and foresters whose main job is to come in and assess trees after a major disaster to help protect the public and protect the trees.
I love these trees, but when I look at them, laying over, broken at the top, broken in the middle, I don't know what's recoverable, what's not, and I need advice and knowledge from them that guides me on how to rebuild the ecology here.
They really care about their trees here. Trees create a sense of place. And in a situation like this, often our buildings can be replaced. We start to rebuild, but it takes a long time to replace our trees. In many cases, we can save them and not have to replace them.
Without their help, I'm stumbling in the dark.
The impact to our community forests is going to be really big. There's a lot of trees that have been damaged that will need help. There are a lot of places where we will need to replant trees that have been lost. And so really it's one of those situations where the recovery process is going to take years and years.
I have one in my house leaning a bit, but my wife was looking at it this morning and it has little tiny green leaves on it. It's already beginning to regenerate, and that's 2 weeks. Now, I'm not a master gardener or a master naturalist, but I've got brand new small green leaves on an oak tree in my yard. So I'm happy about that, and I hope that the trees like this all over our community have little tiny green leaves, that symbol of life coming back.
So the big part of the Urban Forest Strike Team, we want folks to first be an arborist, a certified ISA certified arborist. ISA stands for International Society of Arboriculture. And then within that group, they have a program called tree risk assessment qualification, and we want everyone to have that before they go in and take the schooling for the Urban Forest Strike Team. And that team is actually in a lower. It's a southern group of state foresters, and it makes up about 8 states. It's Texas, Louisiana, and just across the South is where that group is originated from. And so our foresters for our urban group, we go with a lot of training that, say, foresters in East Texas and around the state, they don't necessarily go through the steps that we do to go out and assess trees on the ground and damage and that type of thing. So it's a specialized area. And so within our urban forestry program, what our job is as urban foresters, there's about a dozen of us across the state, and we get the job done through volunteers, and we work through what we call traditional partners, and that's I'm the forester in Dallas, so one of my main partners I work with over there is called the Trinity Blacklands Urban Forestry Council, and the Forest Service started these councils back in the early 90s, and sometimes they'll kind of flounder, but then at times they'll be real active, and they provide training to arborists in the field, and even regular citizens are welcome to. Anyone that's interested in taking care of trees is welcome to attend those educational classes. But they do provide CEUs to the professionals so that they can keep up their accreditation. Another partner, let's see, is would be like the International Society of Arboriculture. They're a partner because we do the trainings with them, and so that's a traditional partner. Civil Air Patrol would be a non-traditional partner because you don't really think of what they're doing with pilots and cadets going out and planting trees. So So when we get to interact and get involved with one of those types of organizations, it's kind of a feather in our cap. It's like, wow, you were able to make a connection to folks that you don't normally see out there in the green industry. So so that's kind of the importance, trying to make that connection as we go along here. And with tree risk assessment, it's a systematic process used to identify, analyze, and evaluate tree risk. And then when we take the classes, we're learning the material, but we're also bringing with us, some amount of years of experience and knowledge. So we're bringing things to the class, and then we're taking what we know and molding it into a tool that we can go out into the field and help these communities save their trees. Because the reason we do that is when a storm comes through, the thing folks want to do is just get out there and clean things up. And they'll clean it up, and it'll be perfectly clean and not a thing left. And we've got to get out there ahead of time and say, hey, let's pump the brakes here. And we think these trees that you're fixing to cut down, they can make it. And we did that. A good example of this is we did that in most recent in Kerrville when the floods came. And those people were devastated because of mainly the loss of life that occurred. But a couple of weeks later, they had us down there, and we didn't do what we normally train to do as far as assessing trees. The city parks supervisor, he asked us. He said he just literally showed us what to do. He went out into the middle of where the creek was, or the river was, and where the waters had come up, and there was an ash standing there and everything else blown down. He just took a can of blue paint and put a big blue dot on it. He said, that's what I want. With everything that will make it, I want a blue dot on it. And we threw paint on trees all over that river, and all everywhere, anywhere we could put blue paint. And we thought that the tree had a chance of surviving. We painted it. We painted little trees, big trees. If that trunk wasn't blown out and the bark just off of it to a point where it wouldn't make it at all, it got the blue paint. So we just painted things blue down there. And then we categorize the risk, and we'll end up giving these folks a report at the end of the day, in a map of everything we tallied, and then they'll take that report and get some reimbursement from FEMA. And FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association agency, is now that's going to be as we go through here, that's another underlying topic, because when we get like my normal day job, I don't worry about incident ICS, incident command system. But if you're on a fire, which I got a red card to do fire work too with wildfire, I got to follow FEMA rules, and it's like the military. It's just real regiment. And yes sir, no sir, don't speak to people above you and stuff. And so that was really hard for me to do. So Civil Air Patrol, they work under the same rules, and because they do a lot of FEMA work too. And so when they're out flying missions, a lot of it and taking pictures, it's under a FEMA contract. And so with tree assessment, it's all documented. The education that we get, when we go to classes, it comes out of It's all documented, put together by these associations like the International Arborist Association, and there's another one. They get several professional societies together and write these manuals. And there's 3 levels to a tree assessment. There's a level 1, which is limited visual assessment. There's a level 2, it's a basic assessment, and a level 3. That's where you start getting out the expensive equipment and drilling into trees with little drill bits. They'll take some electronic equipment, put it around the tree, and create a picture so you can see the decay inside. And that's all about getting an idea of a tree assessment and getting, at the end of the day, getting with a homeowner and saying, you have a high risk of failure with your tree, or something along those lines, just kind of high, medium, low. So with a level 1, we'll do a walk by, a drive by, or a fly by, or aerial patrol. And then LiDAR is a specialty thing, and a lot of communities will use LiDAR. They're getting into that to do a tree inventory. So instead of sending folks out on the ground to measure each tree, they'll just hire a group to come out there with the truck-mounted cameras and stuff, special LiDAR cameras, and do pictures of every tree, every street tree in the community, and get their tree inventory that way. So enter Civil Air Patrol. They where like a group like Urban Forest Strike Team is on the ground assessing the trees, and we can only do so much. Where we leave off on the ground, a group like Civil Air Patrol takes off from there, and they can get some aerial photos. So if we're dealing with a large amount of trees, a large area, they can cover that area a lot faster with a plane or even with drones. So this day and age, that video, a lot of drone coverage in there. and we had a bunch of drones at one time, but we kind of moved away from that at the moment. I think they're hoping to build that program back up. But so we're trying to use this technology to gather data about the forest and help us get a better understanding of what's going on, especially when we have situations with storm damage, pest, disease, and mainly fire at the moment. Y'all have any questions?
Real quick, you mentioned fire. Are you a proponent of going in and clearing out brush underneath the trees or not?
Yeah, yeah, I am. I mean, I'm a proponent of managing the forest. I got my degree in Stephen F. Austin, and yeah, you gotta manage the forest, to keep things healthy. We had my family had some land down in Palestine, and it was really nice hardwood down there, and we planted some pine on the front end of that, and after a while, I just got tired of listening to complaining, and I said, "You go over here and get this forester out of Palestine, and he'll help you out." And they needed to do a thinning because they had already were 17 years into a 30-year rotation for this pine, and so in order to justify crews going in there and thinning out the pine, they wanted to get some of the hardwood too, and which is perfectly legit. The forester, he was a graduate of my school as well, and so they went in there and they took all the the mature trees and left trees that were about 14 inches in diameter on the hardwood, so that it could reseed and get a new forest going. And that's just what you got to do to keep things healthy. If you just leave things out there to fend for themselves, then you're going to have a problem on your hands. And I got a slide at the very end of this. It'll open your eyes on that stuff too. But so with the Civil Air Patrol, our relationship with them goes back to the 1940s. They would watch for fire. We had the fire towers, right? And we look for fires in the fire towers. But when the airplane was invented, then they started moving towards putting people in airplanes to look for the fires that way. And so this is what they had. They had some foresters that they would train to fly, and then they had the Civil Air Patrol help them out there in the beginning. And then at one time, about the mid 40s, we had 5, I believe, Globe Swifts that our foresters, and they trained the foresters to fly them to go out and make a circuit and look for fires and look for forest disease and pests. And when they would see this stuff, they would do what they call map sketching, and they would sketch it out as they fly. And it's just incredible what they did at the time, with the technology that they had. Well, not much has changed. So, except we have ForeFlight. We can jot it down on our iPad, and we have radios that we can and satellite beacons that we can push a button and let people know if we have trouble or not. And the pilots that we have that are available are at the Civil Air Patrol. They come in all shapes and sizes. They'll either be retired airline pilots or still currently working in the airlines. Some military retirees, and then we have some folks that are trying to get to that point. They're students. They're working their way up, and they've just spending a lot of time and a whole lot of money and effort to do these things. And these are these are volunteers, for this group. So we get like myself. I came in as a private pilot. And VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. IFR stands for Instrument Flight Rules. And IFR is where you're controlling the plane just by looking at the instruments on the dash and manipulating it that way. And then they have commercial pilots, the airline pilots. Let's see. And the Form 5 evaluation is what you have to pass to just get checked out in their planes for them to let you fly their planes. And then they have all kinds of levels. Depending on how many hours you have accumulated in your logbook. And I've got in here PIC, that stands for Pilot in Command. Pilot in Command hours are different than total hours. Total, you could have 500 total hours and 300 pilot in command hours, and that 200 hours is time that you were with an instructor or somebody instructing that you weren't pilot in command. You were getting some education there. You have any questions? And so these guys they're going through. We have back a minute. So I came in as a transport. I had enough hours to do a transport mission pilot, and that's ferrying a plane from one place to another. I ferried a plane from Sherman down to Waxahachie because they were having a pilot clinic in Waxahachie. So that's what a transport mission pilot does. And then an orientation pilot, that's with the cadet program. There you are, you can be a private pilot, and what they say is they're private pilots flying at a professional level, and that's what these folks expect out of you. It's just and so I'm trying to communicate to you is the training is really intense, being a part of this group. Um, the In the orientation pilot, they'll get the students and they'll put them in a plane, a couple of them in the plane with them, and they'll show them, how the plane works and just give them an introduction to it. And they have syllabuses for that, so these students can get so much. They're allowed so many flights, and then some of them, if they want to pursue a private pilot's license, they can do so. And that's a real big. That's a nice benefit to these folks. And the private pilots, when you're on board as a private pilot, some of the benefits are people like to greet you when you're wearing the shirt. They treat you really well, especially if you're. I've heard some stories where the pilots they're doing a mission and they treat them really well. The citizens around there, and we'll get ForeFlight, which is a computer program that we'll load onto our laptop or whatnot. Our iPads type of device, and it's a map. So you had your paper maps back in the day. This is all digital maps, and you can chart out your path, and it's got GPS on it. I mean, it's incredible the technology that is in your hand, and then we get that program for free because we're part of CAP and we need it to do the work.
So what airport do they fly out of?
A lot. We have
Where's their primary base operation?
in Texas.
Uh-huh.
So we're all over. So we have about roughly around 33 aircraft in the state, and they're positioned all over. Brownsville. I've been to Tyler. They have some in Amarillo, but in Dallas, I can tell you, Grand Prairie, Meacham. They have McKinney, Mesquite, Greenville, Rockwall. I'm in Rockwall now. I was in Grand Prairie, but I moved over to Rockwall because they wanted some help with some pilots. Nacogdoches is where their headquarters is. And so they're all over. This aerial detection that I'm talking about, it's a new program for us, and you're not going to hear this anywhere else because I'm the only one that's actively working with these folks and doing this. And we have our fire people that interact with them when we have a mission. But as far as a day-to-day, going to the meetings, getting training from them, and trying to help out, I'm the only one in the agency doing it. So it's a new program. I really think that my urban and community forestry program is positioned especially well to help out with this task. But as far as my 10, 12 person group, I'm the only one that's got that kind of training. Is that all you have?
Yeah.
Okay. So to run a mission, to have a mission going, they have people on the ground. Their incident commanders have always got to have it because it follows that FEMA stuff. And but to be in the plane, you've got to go through a scanner class and then an observer class, which requires some flights, some exercises that you've got to participate in, and then the mission pilot. So I'm like a couple of exercises away and half of a test to get my mission pilot. And I've been working on it for 2.5 years and I've been kind of stuck but I'm trying to get over the hump. But I also, while I'm working on that, I'm also working on my instrument rating as well. So it's I used to do refrigeration for 8 years, and when you work on refrigerators, we had these merchandisers that worked for an ice plant, and to feel like you were making any progress, you had to work on about 3 refrigerators at a time because you had to have 3 sets of gauges and you had to work them simultaneously to feel like you were making any headway because it was just so slow. You had to let them cool down and let everything. This is the same. This is the same way. You got to have like 3. You got to have 3 things going to feel like you're making any progress in any one area. So it's tedious. This ICS, that's requirements, that's tests we got to, or little classes we got to go through for the incident command system to learn that. That's a FEMA deal. And so just the pilot, they have the FAA training, whichever level they've got, private pilot, and maybe an instrument rating, maybe commercial pilot, maybe an airline pilot, so whichever level that is. They've got to stay current. You've got to stay current your plane to do that. Having your own airplane is helpful because trying to schedule time in these airplanes, you have to worry about the weather. You got to worry, if you need training, trying to find someone to train you, it gets tough. And then if you have a government shutdown like we just had, maybe have them again, then you got to worry about, the planes being down. So a lot of the folks that hang out with over in Rockwall, they've got their own planes, and it just comes in handy. It's got something sitting there when you want to make some progress. So they've got the FAA stuff, they've got the CAP stuff they got to keep up, and then we ask them to get some training as well. We had a meeting down in Nacogdoches a couple of falls ago, and we trained them on the wildland fire behavior, and so that took about half a day, and then the guys flew in, and then they flew back to their locations. What the agency, when we get them, when we need folks, right now we're focusing on the fire piece. They haven't done any flights for pests or disease yet, or storm damage, but when we need the aircraft or need the crews, we'll pay for the time for the plane. So the rent on the plane, which is a nice number. So it's a benefit to you, the taxpayer, to do it this way. If we were to hire this out, the cost, they did this for years with a vendor, and then the vendor jacked up the price, and we had to seek other options. And that's where the Civil Air Patrol came in. And so we, as an agency, I'll say this, I've been there 9 years, and we're always trying to maximize the taxpayer dollar. That's what I really appreciate about who I work for, is they're really concerned about the money that we get, that you guys pay on taxes. So, and that's why we're doing this. And we also will pay for the fuel that goes into the plane. We also provide them the fire side. They have all the communication stuff, the radios and stuff. I don't know a whole lot about that yet, but they provide the frequencies for that because we've got repeaters out there that we use. Spider Tracks is this little box with a cord that plugs in a cigarette lighter, and we ask them to take that on their flight, plug it in, throw it up on the dash, and that sends out a signal that we can see on the computer using what they call automatic flight following. It's kind of the national wildfire choice of keeping track of planes. And when you pull that up on your computer, you can see the planes all over the nation. So, that's in by doing that, it keeps the crew from having to call into dispatch every 15 minutes. So if we can see them on the screen, that's great. But if we can't see them, then they need to be calling in and letting us know where they're at. Oh, and then, I'll say, so like from my urban and community forestry, so I'm not in fire, I'm urban forester. And so what we're helping to bring to the table is they're allowing me to be involved with this group and train with them and help them out. And I'm also kind of acting as a liaison to our aviation person over in College Station. So this is I think that's a 182, a Cessna 182, sorry. And that's what the Civil Air Patrol uses now. They got away from the little Piper Cubs a while back. And this is a GA8 air van that's built in Australia that been able to make a landing in. So they're getting rid of that platform. They also have a Cessna 172s, so the 172s, the 182s, and they also have some Cessna 206s. Now these 182s and the 206s, those are over 200 horsepower, so you have to get a high performance rating for that, in which I've been able to do that with this group. This is a G1000, so they're getting all their planes. As they get new planes, they get this high-tech, they call it technically advanced aircraft when it comes with the Garmin 1000 and the Garmin Autopilot as well. And I've been working on that, but I didn't pass this part of the test. And it's just, my buttonology is just not up to speed. It's just a lot of buttons. And but I've been doing some instrument training, and it's kind of opened my eyes to kind of how that stuff makes a little more sense. So when we get a crew, that we give Lucinda 24-hour notice to get a crew together, and when they're out, get the crew and they're flying, they start their route. We have two routes, one in northeast Texas and one in southeast Texas, and they'll get up there, and then they call them smokes. They said you're looking for smokes, and so it's just smoke coming up from the ground, and when they see, so they're flying the route, they're flying and see one out here to the side, and then they'll call dispatch and they'll say, do you have any fires in the area that we're in? And if it's no, then they'll proceed. They'll go check the smoke, and then if it's yes, they'll stay on course, but they'll ask, do you have crews on scene? Do you need us? Whatnot. And if they say yes, we need you to go, then they'll go. But if they say they don't have any fires, then they'll deviate. So they won't deviate until they're told to deviate from dispatch. It's very they got a process. And then once they're over the fire, they'll give the location usually with a lat and longitude. We can get off of any number of GPSs. These planes have screens on them with the navigation. They'll estimate the size. This has been a kind of a point of contention in the past. It's just hard. It's very hard to just go out, fly around, and estimate the size of something burning if you haven't done it before. So getting pilots to that point where they can estimate the size fairly reliably is a big help, because the crews on the ground, they depend on that type of information to know how many crews they need, just kind of get that mindset of getting ready to go to war with that fire. Fuels is very important, especially if it's in a pine plantation. I picked this up when I was down there in that class. if the pine plantations, the trees are real close together, the fuels you were talking about, you asked me a while ago about clearing out the limbs from the ground to creating a separation there. The pine plantations, they in some cases they haven't done that, and so a fire gets in there, and it's a whole different ball game when you're dealing with a fire on a pine plantation. Mixed timber, they'd like to know, if it's mixed timber or not, or an oak or pine, grass, brush, those types of things. And then the behavior of the fire, is it a low, moderate, high, extreme? Are there any buildings? Is there anything that the fire can threaten to cause some damage? And then they'll put all this on what they call a need board. They'll write all this information down and give that over to dispatch over the radio. And then we also want to, we're asking of these pilots to know a little bit about wildland fires, and that's and the main thing, which was expressed to me early on, was parts of a fire. This is probably the most basic thing we're asking of them, is to be able to name, describe the parts of the fire, give the crews an idea of what's going on and what to expect out there. And so we have some origin, the location of where the fire started, terms like head and flank. The flank is the right side or left side of the fire. You have the heel, you have the perimeter. The finger is where the fire is just kind of started off on its own and create just like a little mitten on the finger. A pocket, or I think a pocket and an island is, a pocket is a unburned area between the main fire and any fingers, and the island is an area of unburned fuel inside the perimeter. Spot fires are where the embers are being carried forward of the fire and starting other fires ahead of the original. And then spread, if they can tell us anything about how fast it's moving, is a big help. And if they can tell us in measurement of chains, that's even a greater help, because a chain is what we use in forestry. It's a rule of measurement that we use constantly in surveying forests, and that's 66 feet. So we use that to get land measurements. We use that very, very much in that. Smoldering, creeping, running, backing, spotting, torching. That's what torching is, where it starts coming up through the crown. A crown fire is where the fire is up in the crown. That's really bad. And then a blow up is if you're in a gully or something, you get some a wind and a shift in the front comes through, and the wind changes. It can blow that fire up that gully and create a situation that's really hazardous. We've had, especially out west, blow-ups that have killed, wildland firefighters. One of the famous ones was in 1948. If anybody's seen River Runs Through It, well, the guy that wrote a book called Young Men in Fire, and it was about 13 smoke jumpers. They went out on I think it was a DC-3, and they jumped out, and they got caught in this fire one afternoon, and they all but one perished. So it's a technical read, but it's a good read, and so that can be it can be that's a bad situation. Don't wanna be around on that. And so once, with the Civil Air Patrol pilots, once you start talking about this stuff, they get really excited. And so with the pilot community, people want to help. They want to help for their trees. When they know you're out there, you're trying to get things done. They just want to help. And I had told a couple of young guys about what we were doing, and they're just out there flying and calling in fires to the flight service station, and they're just willy-nilly. So just really getting after it. It's really exciting. This was a picture that was taken. So Dallas has what they call the Great Trinity Forest. It's like 6,000 or 7,000 acres of land, and it's a forest. It's one of the largest urban forests in the nation, right here in Dallas. And they my instructor, I got a 1946 Luscombe that I bought 3 years ago, and I didn't know how to fly it, but he taught me how to fly. Well, he works for aerial photos. He's doing photos, and I told him what I was trying to do. I wanted to get a photo of trees while they were dormant, while other trees were leafing out, and the trees that were dormant we were suspecting were ash, while the other trees were leafing out. So, because we wanted to try to see that ash population in the forest. So he got out there with his camera. He sent me a bunch of pictures, and he got this one. And when I would, and they've gone in and measured this forest, the trees in it from time to time over the last 20 or 30 years. But you still, when I came on as the forester, they would ask me, I would have city folks ask me, what's the population of our ash trees? Because we've got this emerald ash borer out there that's killing the ash trees. And they would ask me constantly, and I'm like, I don't know. You got it in those management plans that you've been paying good money for. You paid, thousands of dollars to have people go and fly and use fancy cameras to get this information, and you're asking me. And so my buddy, he took this picture, and I started passing the picture around. I said, "Here's your answer. You tell me what percentage of it is ash. It looks pretty high to me." And when some of the people in positions of influence saw that, they freaked out. They absolutely freaked out. And you start getting some balls rolling that way. So I'm just saying that the aviation aspect is very important and very we utilize it in forestry quite a bit. And I have an article back home that talks about where forestry we use the airplane in every way. Every way you can use an airplane, we use it. We get out there to see stuff. We drop stuff out of it. We carry helicopters, carry circular saws that prune off branches. I mean, we use aviation in a lot of different ways in forestry, and people just don't realize it all the time. So anyway, that's all I got. If have any questions, I'm glad to field those.
Where is the Great Dallas Forest?
It's it borders. It's south of Dallas. It borders. I think see what is it 175 and then 45. It's kind of along along the Trinity River.
Is that part of your jurisdiction in Dallas County?
So I have 10 counties, yes, sir. Yeah, I've got 10 counties. It starts down in Navarre County, Ellis County, Dallas County, all the way up to the Red River, and then I've got Cook County too. So I don't make decisions on that, but when people when the city needs some technical advice, that's what the Forest Service is for.
And you're doing it primarily for commercial or like governmental agencies. You don't do it for farmers or ranchers or homeowners.
So in East Texas, the foresters out there, they work with the landowners that have, to help them manage their trees and provide them wisdom on that. I will, and our main customer is communities, but that doesn't stop this. We'll start with a picture. Say you have an issue you're concerned about. You send me a picture on my phone. I'll look at it. If I don't know what it is, I just can't see it real good. I don't waste people's time taking a bunch of pictures, until they get it right. I'll usually probably come out right away. If sometimes people they're not good at technology, then I'll hear that over the phone and I'll get out there. So it's kind of a step-by-step process. Now, what we have to do, since we have this relationship with our partners and with other professionals, we're training other professionals to build our capacity is what we do that for. I can't infringe upon their ability to make a buck. So I'll try to do some, I'll go so far, and then I'll say, yeah, you need to get some more eyes on this, and hire an arborist, give them a website and stuff. Yes.
So you're with the state of Texas. What about all the big properties that are foreclosed properties? Do you meet with them, or do they have their own?
If they ask, like with Barville Lake down in Ennis, I'm starting to. They're pretty good at taking care of their own stuff, but I've got a guy there that he's done some work himself over in California, responded to some situations, and he's one of the first people I've met since I've been here that kind of they get it as far as the tree risk assessment stuff and the value that we bring to the table as certified arborists and master arborists and whatnot. And so he's reached out and to me and to our Trinity Blacklands Urban Forestry Council to help him with their park over there, because they've got one park in particular that's really got some problems. It's a bunch of trees blown down. They can't get anyone they don't have the funds to cut the stuff up, and much less money to replant. And then if they did replant, he's like, I don't know what to put in the ground. So he's been talking to us about that. And what's funny is there's an airport right 1,000 feet away, and so I want to get pilots fly in, park their planes, and then go plant some trees. So try to kill two birds with one stone. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Are wildfires now called wildland fires? Is that the new terminology?
Well, I got that off the slide. That's what I think that's kind of the proper term, that the fire people use. It's all right.
So, as a homeowner, got a bunch of trees, and early in your presentation, you said, hey, wait a second before you come in and just chop everything down and have it hauled off.
Yeah, in like an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in general, it sounds like I need to do what? Let's make sure that this tree is really history and it's not causing. We're
advocates for trees. We want to keep them around as long as they're not a risk to people. And so if you've got a tree that's got a bad spot on it, you don't know what's going on with the roots, unless you start digging around and find a bunch of rotten roots and stuff like that. Or if you see decay and conchs growing on the tree, that's depending on what it is. But usually if I see that, I don't care what it is. that's bad. And so that's where your certified arborist comes into play, and they have people that have that same qualification that we have with the agency, the track qualification, tree risk assessment, and they'll come out and they'll do an assessment on your tree, and depending on how much money you want to spend on it, is they'll start whipping out the really expensive technical tools and give you a good idea of what's going on. Yes, sir.
So in the picture you showed with the Dallas forest, you said they were ash trees.
Yeah.
And there's a light that could destroy the ash trees. So is that a concern that they might lose a lot of that forest with that?
Yeah. It's already in it. That emerald ash borer, it's already in there, and it's going to town. I mean, no, that EAB has been around since 2002. They found it up in Wisconsin, and it's just made its way south and west and east, and they tried to use silvicultural steps to stop it years ago, and then finally, I don't know, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, the federal government got out of the business of monitoring. They were like, we can't stop it, because they were paying for us to go out and put traps and monitor for the pests, and we still do it. So the feds got out of the business, but the state, we still go and we pay for that. The state does to put these traps out and to monitor where this thing's going. And when it gets into a new county, the county is thing under quarantine, and some rules go into effect that basically say that you can't haul off any hardwood wood out of that county because the possibility of that wood containing these bugs.
Wow. We have some trees that see the same thing where it's like on the oak trees where the bark kind of just blows off the tree.
No, that's going to be that's not what I'm talking about. This thing is the ash trees only. It's emerald ash borer. Now there's oak wilt out there. That's more central Texas, but then we have a lot of trees up here that get hypoxylon canker. Okay, yeah, and that's brought on by drought. And when trees are stressed out, then the diseases start kicking in.
We have that. We have that for sure. Yeah. Mike, thank you. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Very good stuff.